Hi everyone, I'm Scott. This is my channel CineRam, and today I'd like to talk about my all-time favorite cinema visits, experiences that I had seeing a movie in the theater, my 10 favorites, not necessarily first-time viewings in some cases. A couple honorable mentions first. The Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980. I was 7 at the time. My family went to see it. Of course, I was, very eager because as I was a Star Wars fan. And one of the things that happened right before the movie started, they showed the previews, and then before the movie began, the curtains widened to get that full aspect ratio of the frame. Everybody in the theater goes, "Ooh!" It's fun. After the movie was over, we're walking out to the parking lot, and I asked my dad, "Darth Vader isn't really Luke's dad, is he?" And my dad says, "You know what, Scott? Darth Vader's a real bad guy. He's a big liar. Don't think that we should count on him to telling the truth there." Oops. The Departed. The Departed came out in 2006, the fall of 2006. I happened to be visiting a good friend of mine in New York at the time. His name's Matt. We've known each other since middle school. We're both big movie fans, of course. So it just happened to be the opening of the new Martin Scorsese film, so we said, let's go see that. We had a great time. It's a great film. And certainly one of the most memorable parts is a scene, and if you haven't seen the movie, I won't spoil it, but there's a scene that takes place in an elevator where something rather abrupt happens. And when it happened, during that screening, the yelp from everybody in the theater was really something to behold. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. This came out in December of 2011. I was living in Chicago in the city, and my brother came to visit, stayed with me for a couple days, and we decided to go see that movie. So first we got caught up by rewatching Mission Impossible 3, and then we went downtown to the Navy Pier IMAX theater, which unfortunately isn't open anymore. But this is an IMAX theater with a screen that's 8 stories tall. Showed on film rather than digitally, of course. The digital IMAX presentation really wasn't a thing at that point, at least not in Chicago. And sitting in there in that theater, the image is just overwhelming. Now, Mission Impossible typically uses that, aspect ratio that basically just takes up a narrow portion of the screen. I mean, if you're seeing a regular theater, it's wider. But an IMAX theater, you're just using the middle portion of the screen. But when Tom Cruise steps up to the window of that skyscraper, the picture widened like that, and then the camera goes above his head and looks straight down to the ground. Oh my goodness, the best use of IMAX in any movie I've ever seen. My hands were sweaty, everybody was freaking out. It was really something, really, really something. Finally, last honorable mention, Avengers Endgame. I have a couple friends named Chuck and Jack. I've gone with them to see several of the MCU movies, and we went to see, of course, Endgame on opening weekend, and that was really, really exciting. Everybody was clamoring to see the movie, of course, when it first came out, and probably the best aspect of that was seeing Cap walk into the elevator full of Hydra guys and trick them into just handing him the scepter and then walking out with a smirk on his face. Very, very sweet moment. I mean, the whole movie's fun. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's a lot of fun. And that was, one of the more memorable experiences that we've had seeing a Marvel movie. So now I'd like to talk about the 10 favorite ones. And I'm going to break this down by movies that I saw by myself and movies that I saw with other people. So, by myself, I went to see United 93 in the fall of May of 2006. It opened the same weekend as Mission Impossible 3, coincidentally. And this was quite an experience for me because up until that point, I'd only just read news reports about what happened on September 11, 2001, and seen, specials on TV and things like that. This really made it real, much more real. I didn't lose anyone in September 11. Nobody that I know was directly affected by it. And a couple people living in New York, of course, but nothing happened to them. They're fine. So this really sort of made it more personal for me, especially since a lot of the people that participated in the events of that day played themselves in the film. One of the best films I've ever seen, as it happens. In the fall of 1992, Tim Robbins made his directorial debut with Bob Roberts, which is a mock documentary about a right-wing conservative folk singer who runs for Pennsylvania Senate, or the Pennsylvania Senate seat in Washington, D.C. I was 19 when this movie came out. Really not all that interested in politics in general. Growing up in the white suburbs, and everything like that. Didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. This made me pay more attention, especially since at the end of the movie, there's news of one of the characters having been killed, and a whole bunch of people jump up and down cheering and celebrating. I'm like, oh, these are not good people. Right. So that made me see, things a little differently. You could say that it was sort of a political awakening for me, that film. So it's important to me personally. In the fall of 1986, Peggy Sue Got Married came out. This is a Francis Ford Coppola movie with Kathleen Turner and Nicolas Cage. And it's about a woman whose mother she's getting a divorce because her husband cheated on her. And suddenly she wakes up and she's 18 years old again in high school. And she has to choose whether or not to marry her high school boyfriend who she knows will cheat on her. But there's a bit of a culture shock there with her getting used to experiencing life in 1960 again. I saw this movie alone. I was 13 at the time. It was probably the first time I'd ever gone to see a movie entirely by myself. And it was certainly one of the more adult-themed movies that I'd seen in the theater. Of course, it's, a fantasy because it's time travel, but the themes, the subject matter is more mature than the typical movie that I was accustomed to at that time. Additionally, as I was sitting in the theater trying to watch the movie, there was a girl in the row behind me who tried talking to me. I'm like, will you please not do that? I'm trying to watch this movie. I was like totally clueless, And she tried talking to me after the movie was over and I was leaving the theater. She was really bothering me. I was not interested in her. But, that made it a memorable experience. Teeth. I'm not really sure what year this came out. Teeth is a horror movie starring an actress named Jess Wixler. And she discovers that she has a condition called vagina dentata. She has teeth in her vagina. And this rears its ugly head when she has sex with a couple of guys and they get their privates snipped off during the act. Sitting in this theater, there weren't a lot of people in the theater, but the ones that were, the guys in the theater, were like, oh, I'm just like, guys, you're too easy, okay? It's just a movie. I mean, really. They were identifying a little bit too closely with the men in this movie. And these men were not exactly victims because most of them were terrible people. Also, Teeth contains my favorite use of the phrase, oh shit. Great delivery of that particular line. So yeah, that made it very, very memorable. In September of 1995, Seven came out, the David Fincher film. It was his second film. I wasn't too excited about the movie because I wasn't a big fan of Alien 3, and I wasn't aware of his music video work. But going into Seven, I had, moderate expectations. I didn't think there would be anything special. But by the end of the movie, I was like, excited and scared and just delighted at how the movie was affecting me emotionally. And really took me away from the usual experience of seeing a movie and going, interesting cuts, interesting writing, good performance, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was just going, he's so dangerous, oh my God, what the heck is going to happen? Where is he taking him in this open field with the power lines and everything like that? Oh yeah, and when the movie was over, I was so devastated, I couldn't move from my seat. The entire credits played, the lights came up when it was all done, I just sat there for another 10-15 minutes before I finally got up and left, and because I was so devastated by that movie. Quite an experience. Now, for 5 movies that I saw with other people. In early 1994, I walked into a theater that I visited regularly, and there was a person there saying, hey, we've got passes to see a movie in advance, and asked people what they think of it. Would you like to see that? I'm like, oh, sure. It says, it's called The Hudsucker Proxy. The Coen Brothers? I'm going to get to see the Coen Brothers movie like 2 months early? That's amazing. I had a real tricky time, though, because the pass was just for 2 people, so I had to choose whether to bring my best friend Matt or my brother Alan. It was a tough choice. I brought my brother Alan. He was a big fan of Raising Arizona, as I was. We went to see the movie. I had no idea what the movie was about other than it involved hula hoops for some reason. We had a great time. It was really funny. It was gorgeous. The music was great. Really amazing. Plus, it was very cold and snowy. There's like blizzard conditions that day, so everyone was like really glad to be inside watching a film. Next, Dark City. Dark City came out in 1998. And Dark City is one of those examples of a movie that I go into expecting one thing but got something completely different. I knew what the premise was, but I didn't expect it to affect me emotionally quite as it did. Occasionally I'll see a movie in which characters get involved in some terrible sort of sci-fi predicaments that they couldn't possibly have predicted, and I really feel for them when that happens. And there have been a couple occasions when I actually cried. And this was one of them, except that I cried like on 3 different scenes of the movie, which was kind of a record for me in my adult life. I rarely ever get that emotional during a movie, but Dark City was one of them. The Shawshank Redemption came out in the fall of 1994, and I'd seen it and thought it was great, and then I asked my dad if he wanted to come see it with me. So for my second viewing, he accompanied me, and while we're sitting in the theater watching the movie, and we get to the scene where the young convict, Billy, speaks with the warden about this information that he has about Tim Robbins' character and how he might actually be innocent of the crime he was convicted for. And the warden says to him, I need to know straight, whether or not you're telling the truth here. He's like, absolutely. He says, and you'd be willing to swear in a court of law? And he's like, absolutely, just give me that chance. And the warden says, that's what I thought. And my dad, sitting next to me, whispers, oh no, he's dead. And a moment later, bang! Yep. Good call, Dad. Yes. Saw that coming. Tim Robbins was much too important for the warden to just let him walk free. Yeah, great movie. You know, its reputation has grown in the decades since it came out. I'm really happy about that. In the fall of 2003, I learned that a film that had come out 20 years earlier was going to be shown at a theater in downtown Chicago at a special event at the famous Chicago theater. So I invited a friend of mine, Trish, to accompany me because she was also a fan of this film. It's called Koyaanisqatsi. Technically it's a documentary, but it's not like any usual documentary. There's no interviews, there's no narration. There isn't a story in the real sense. It's mostly just a lot of photography, accompanied by music by Philip Glass. And the special part about this screening, not only was it re-release, and it was the first time I had the opportunity to see this movie in the theater, but Philip Glass was there in person with his own orchestra to accompany the film live. Quite amazing. I'd had an opportunity to see the film when I was in high school, but I got grounded at the last minute because my grades were so terrible, so I couldn't go I learned this hours before I was supposed to leave. And that was very disappointing to my friend Matt, because we were going to go together to see it. But I finally got to see it on its 20-year anniversary with Philip Glass in person. And let me tell you, during the first few minutes of that movie, when I'm listening to this music that I've heard many times, I was just so happy, crying my eyes out, so happy I was finally seeing Koyaanisqatsi on this huge screen. It was amazing, really amazing. Finally, last one. In 1982, E.T. came out, Spielberg film. My family and I went to see it. We all went to see it a couple of times, loved it, great food. On the third screening, we invited another family in our neighborhood to come and see it with us. They lived more or less across the street from us, and they had a son about my age and a daughter, Melanie, about my little brother's age. And we went to the film, and everybody had a great time, and Melanie said, yeah, I got kind of emotional during the end right there. The thing that was memorable about this experience is that Melanie had developed a brain tumor earlier. She'd had surgery. She was recovering. Her hair was super short. She had this big curved scar on the side of her head, but she seemed absolutely fine. She was talking, walking around, seemed like everything was good. So that was one of the last times that we got to spend with her, because a few months later, after we'd seen the movie, we got word that the tumor had returned, and at this point it was not operable. They couldn't get to it, and she did not survive. And she never saw her 8th birthday, I believe. So yeah, another... yeah, that's what made that particular day noteworthy for me. So those were my top 10 with a few honorable mentions. Theatrical visits, cinema screenings that I've had. Speaking of cinema screenings, I just want to mention that my friend Mike Smith has his new film Hekla screening in a few places here and there around the country. And I've seen it a couple times now. It's really funny, and I hope you get a chance to see it too. Hekla, Hekla. I'll leave a link to the trailer in the description if you want to check that out. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.